I have been given a message to be given to the church universal. It came around 4 or 5 a.m. this morning. I didn't know the time, but I would have forgotten it, but Pastor Jennifer reminded me. It came in 2 different folds, but it's all one. So I want to give this message to the church universal. But this church message goes to the angels of the churches, indicating that it goes to the pastors or the leaders, whoever is a leader of a church. That's your message. And please, when you hear this message, don't attack your pastor. Pray for your pastor. This morning I was taken to an amphitheater. Amphitheater is more like a sports stadium, but it's built like in a rotund form, like a round form. Now, it happened to be a church auditorium that seats people in their thousands. But especially the people I saw were all white people. They were all white people. Almost all of them. Almost all of them. There were some pockets of black people inside. And that is why I believe that this message is purely, mostly concerning the church. That's the white people's church. Not only in Europe, but the whole world. But especially Europe, because I ministered in Europe. Hallelujah. There were more youth than there were elderly in the gathering. But in the gathering, there were more women than there were men. They had gathered for a church program and were waiting for a preacher to come and preach to them. However, the shouts and the sounds they made in the gathering was like a sound of a festival and a sound of a partying. So in other words, you hear like the way they do when there's music festival or when they're doing talent show. And before you walk to stage, the way the people make noise and clap their hands for you. You all have seen America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent, and X Factor before. There's noise the people make and the shout they make before you enter the stage. That was what was going on. Now hear me, church. So that was the sound of their worship. So their worship was not spirit-filled. It was not spirit-filled because it was not spirit-led. And because it was not spirit-led, in the ears of God and the way heaven saw it, it was like a festival taking place, which is a secular festival. And then they had a searchlight. I don't know where it was coming from, but the searchlight would go on the people around like this. So I saw the faces of most of the white girls who were doing the noise. So there were more youth in it than they were elderly. I am not going to mention the names of the pastors who were preaching because I want to protect their identity. Because they were used in this vision to show me something. They were not necessarily the pastors, in real life, who might have caused a problem. However, they themselves have an awakening to awaken. And you pastors, I can tell you off record after church who the pastors were. For it to bring a bombshell if I mention their names and people will attack me. People may think I even hate those pastors. One of them I have even served before in real life. Hallelujah. In real life, I have served one of the pastors before. I have preached for one of them before. That's the only clue I can give. Hallelujah. So finally, the pastor arrived. And this pastor in real life has a mega church. A big church with branches all over the world. When he arrived, the noise was even more bigger. So the whole amphitheater was filled with people down to the floor, to the way these seats are organized, then to the stage. There was a bigger stage. Then they had the screen behind me like this. Then I saw cripples, people who were sick with wheelchair, and they were all white women, white men, white people who had been put in front, just like the way Benny Hinn would organize his conferences, exactly the way in his heydays. For that was the reference given to me when I saw it. So now, Reason why they sat in front is so that when there's miracle time or healing time or ministration time, they can be healed first. But guess what? When the preacher took the microphone to preach, he was preaching experiences and no revelation. Remember, 99% of the people were all white people, so he preached in English. I could not see any power coming from the mouth of the preacher. I saw experience and references coming from the mouth of the preacher. And that's not what the people needed. They needed something that can hit them to wake them up. But I saw that the people were all a bit, not there. What it means is that they did not know whether there's a revelation or not revelation. All they know is that a mega man of God has come to town. And it's a mega gathering. And they're supposed to receive. But the strange thing is this. Whilst watching the vision, I saw another pastor whose name I had mentioned before. In the previous revelation God gave me about some 3 pastors whose name I mentioned. So this time around, I'm not mentioning his name. This pastor was interpreting, not translating, interpreting. Remember, interpretation and translation are not the same. So this pastor was interpreting the other pastor. So the less mega pastor was interpreting the mega pastor in tree to the white people. So the pastor is preaching. People are expecting miracles and healing. They're expecting an expectation from God. And everything he says, this pastor is interpreting in tree. So it was superfluous. It was to no effect. Then the searchlight was put on the front row on just 3 black families who sat there, who understood tree, but they are English. So they speak English better than tree. So it only benefited 3 people. Not all the people. The interpretation. Then the scene was later from there to a military barracks. Then I saw Auntie Eileen who had passed. And Eileen needed to introduce us to a certain military people to offer us help. This time around, I was there with the children. For Elisha was there, Pastor Jennifer was there, and the children were all there. So we had been put in a place as to wait, for it was raining. And we were waiting for a transportation from one end of the spectrum to another end. But hear me out. Remember, we are still in the church setting. Then I saw a man I know, whose name I can't mention, for there are many of you watching from Sampa and Ghana who may know him, and I want to be careful. He was my classmate. His father was a custom officer, his mother was a midwife. That's all I can say. So this guy, in real life, he has joined something they call the Rotary Club. So he's a lion. And by the way, this morning confirms my suspicion about the Rotary Club. That there's an element of Freemason in it. So as I was watching, this guy, he had a son in real life. And this son had grown to the secondary school level. Please, it's important, the stages I'm mentioning. And he had turned his back on a son and a woman and says now he wants men. For that has been his desires all his life, to be with a man. But he had to have a woman just to cover up. And so now he's coming up boldly that as for him, he wants men. And it's men he wants. And I was watching the thing. I will not give the details of it, and the thing was lifted. But hear me. This is what the Lord is saying. The leadership of the church universal, most of them have lost sight with the Spirit of God, and they have disconnected from the source of power. That is why the man of God was preaching, yet there was no power, there was no revelation. And the people who came to be healed went back home the same way they came. It was just a social gathering. Then the Lord said, church has become social gathering. Church has not become the place where people come and they know the Lord was in church. The Lord was not missed anymore. Because the men of God have failed to spend time with me. So if the man of God does not spend time with me, I, the Lord, will not spend time with the people when he stand there to represent me. That is why they all resorted to topics of stories and experiences to preach to the people. And today, the Lord said that's why it is in churches. Everywhere you enter, every Sunday, every Friday, every time there's church, pastors are resorting to what? Stories and stories of the past to be able to preach to the people. They have not received express revelation of what I'm saying now. So people are not maturing, and people are becoming dumb. Their minds are becoming dull, and they are not receiving more insight. And so Christians are easily deceived than even those in the world. They are being tossed to and fro. Then I saw the interpreter. The Lord said the interpreter means another pastor who is speaking gibberish. It is not even needed. He is not asking me, Lord, is it needed? And he will do it. Those are the group of leaders. They are so busy. Why I don't need them, that's where they come to serve. They are so busy, why I have not sent them, it's where they go. And the things they have done will not benefit anybody apart from just a speck of people. And even those people don't need it because they understand the other one. This is the two kinds of leadership the Lord showed me today in the church. Then the third leadership God showed me is a leadership who are pastors and yet they are homosexuals. They are hiding it. They are in the church. They are leaders. They are married. Some of them have children, yet they still have desires for men. Some of them have children, and yet they have desires for fellow women. So God has also shown me another spectrum of church leaders, women and men, who have fallen victim to the homosexual tendencies, and they are in the church. So this is why the Ichabod effect has started taking place. Ichabod means my glory has departed from the church. He said, if I do not raise up pastors to tend to the wounds of the sheep and the legs that have been broken, the time will be cut short and none shall be saved. Church, pastors, we have failed you. So on behalf of pastors, we are sorry. On behalf of the leaders worldwide, we are sorry. Few there be who are waiting on God so that they can receive and give you. The rest of them, they resort to stories of the past. How God used to use them before they preached to you. Papa, have mercy. Papa, have mercy. I said, Papa, have mercy. We are going to pray a short prayer for the church. We are going to pray for the pastors and for the church leadership. 3 groups of leadership: the perverted ones, the busybody ones, and the lazy ones. That's what God is showing me. The perverted ones are those who have inordinate desires. The busybody leaders are the ones who are not hearing from God. They are so busy, they think whatever they are doing, they are working for God, and that God likes it. But God says, no, I didn't send you there. They are doing what is superfluous, what is unnecessary. Then we have the lazy ones who are not more praying. They have lost their power. They are resorting to the past. They are mega pastors. They've been around for longer. They are bishops. They got churches everywhere. And yet they stop praying, they stop fasting, and their belly is becoming bigger. Some of them are becoming more slimmer because by their nature, that's how they are. But spiritually, there's no power there. There are people gather just because they hear them coming. And they go back home empty-handed. And the people, if you don't know, they went back empty-handed because the entertainment made them feel like God was there. Yeah, it was entertainment. It was not God's presence. Entertainment has replaced the joy of the Spirit. When the entertainment only brings happiness, happiness and joy are not the same. Yet those pastors are giving happiness instead of joy. May grace help us.